Hello there, and welcome back to the channel. Today we are diving into a really powerful but often overlooked feature of Spring Boot, and I'm talking about the Spring Boot profile. Now, whether you're building a simple application or a full-scale enterprise system, Spring Profile helps your application behave differently in different environments like the testing or the production, and you'll do this without changing your code. What is Spring Boot Profile? Spring Boot Profile allows you to separate your application configuration into environments like QA, dev, and production, as I said earlier. Now, let me use the analogy of a cloth, for example, to explain what Spring Boot Profile means, right? Imagine you have different clothes for different days and different occasions, right? For example, you wear your pajamas to bed at home, you wear it at home. You have your school uniform, you wear that to the school, and for some of us that go to the party, we have a party clothes for birthdays, maybe whatever occasions you're going to. Just like that, Spring Boot uses Profile to know which setup or configuration to wear, depending on whether it is development, QA, testing, or maybe production. In this video, we'll explain what Spring Boot profiles are, how to create and activate them, how to load beans conditionally using a profile, and of course, how to manage different configuration files like the application dev, application prod, and so on and so forth. Now, here is a twist. I'll try as much as possible to explain them in a very simple way that you would get it. So if you ever wondered what Spring Boot Profile is, or if you ever wondered what application YAML does, what it is used for, I'll help you explain that in this video. Now, let's break down Spring Boot Profile using real-world examples, fun analogies, and hands-on coding. So by the end of this video, you will know exactly how to use them like a pro. Let's dive into it. Okay, to start, the first thing we want to do is create our project, our Spring Boot project. For some of us that do not know how to create your Spring Boot project, you could visit my previous video where I spoke extensively about how to create a project and the project structure. All right, here we just create the new project. We click on the new project, we name the project. Let's just name it profile test, for example, and you probably just want anywhere you want it to be at, you can put it there. What language are we using? We're using Java. What build tool? We're using Maven, and we can just leave every other thing the way it is. We can use Java 24, 21, whatever it is you want to use and you're comfortable using, that's fine. And here it's asking for the Spring Boot version, but here we just use the 5.4, and we just bring in just one dependency, Spring Web, and that should be all for it. So let's just create the project, and when you create a new project, it should come with all the structures. You see the main, the test, and then we just want to click on load Maven project. All right, you see the main, the test, under the main you see the Java, and of course the resources. Right here you see that we have the application of properties file, right, which is where our property is going to be sitting. Right, we have three options to configure our environment. We could decide to use a common one, which is the application of property files, or the YAML file. If you want to change it to YAML file, you could just right click it, rename it, and just application to YAML, right, whichever one you want to use, and then you're good. So opening this, then you don't want to format the structure. Here you'd have Spring, and then you have the application name, and then we want to say the name is Spring Test, right? All right, let's just run this and see how this works. Also have it in mind that this is just a blank project. We're not doing anything at the moment, okay? We just want to test it and make sure it runs and it has a port assigned to it. So let's take a look at the console here, and it should say several things I need you to understand here. It's running on port 8080, which is good. And now it's saying that there is no active profile set. All right, which is good because we have not done anything. So it is running on port 8080, and at the same time, it has no active profile set to it. All right, as I said earlier, right, there are different ways you could do this. You could use the common one, which is the application.yml. You could decide to use the configuration, and then you could decide to use the add profile. So let's start with using the common one, which is using the application.yml file, right? So for the application.yml file, I'm just going to assume that, or we're just going to assume that the application.yml is for the local, right? Let's just create another one here. It's just creating a file, and we would name it application-dev.yml. What we're saying is that this is our local, this is our dev. Let's just create one more, and we want to call this application-qa.yml. Simple enough, right? So let us assign ports to each one of them. From our console, you would agree with me that by default it runs on port 8080. We could leave that, no problems. Then let's look at the dev, right? Let's just give it a port, say port 8081, and then let's give our QA another port number, say port 8082. Fair enough. Now looking at the application.yml, right? We see that the application name is profile test. We can just change this to say hello local. But again, remember that this could be anything you're planning to configure, right? It might be the database access. It might be anything. It might be any form of configuration you're trying to make. We're going to make this our local, and we just say this is hello local, right? And then we want to do the same thing. Let me just copy here to make it faster. We want to do the same thing here in dev. We just want to say hello dev. Let me just copy the same thing here and then paste it here. And then we want to say hello QA, right? To run each one based on the environment, right? By default, it runs this one, which is the application YAML, right? And we know from previous run that it runs on 8080, and we can test it using 8080, right? Now, to test this, let's just create the controller to make it faster. Let's create a controller. Let me just create a package to make things clean a little bit. Let's name this controllers. All right. Now we want to create a class called profile test. Okay, and then we want to use our annotations. For those of you that do not know what the annotations are, you could also watch my previous video and you would understand it. All right, so we want to use the address controller, and then we want to create a method. We want to create an endpoint here, and we want to first start with the public, right? Public, what do we want to return? Since we just want to return these names, right, based on the environment, we just want to return a string. Let's make it a string, and we just want to say get name, which is good. Nothing fancy. And then we want to return. What do we want to return? Now, this is where it gets interesting, right? Since we are going to return the values dynamically from here, depending on the environment, then we need the add value annotation, right? Okay, and then we want to map our environment variables, right? So we want to say for here, we'll go to application.yml, then it says Spring application and name, and that's what we need. So we're going to say spring.application.name. There you go. So now it's picking it already. It's saying, okay, spring.application.name for QA is hello QA, for dev it's hello dev, and for the local it's saying hello local, okay, which is good. And then we want to say string name. Let's just make it private. No problems. And then we want to return the app name. That's nothing fancy, right? Now, depending on how you're trying to run this, right? For example, I am using IntelliJ, so it's easy for me to easily just run this or configure this based on environment. All right, so you see where you have active profile, I could decide to just say either dev or maybe QA depending on what I'm doing. All right, so but again, by default, we're saying that we want to use this as our local. And then to test this, oh, we're missing one more thing, the get mapping. And so let me just give it an endpoint, say get app name. All right, which looks good. All right, so let's start this. And then while that is starting, we go into our Postman, we create a new request, HTTP request. It's always going to be, well, it is localhost 8080 according to this. So Tomcat started on localhost 8080. So, right, so we do on this, and then what's our endpoint we're trying to call is the get app name, right? So that is localhost 8080/get app name, and then we should get hello local because it's coming directly from our local. Now, what if we want to switch it to dev? Okay, so let's just stop it and go into our edit configuration, and then we just change it to dev because we're running dev environment, right? And then just apply it, and then we run it. Okay, good. So according to this, it's already saying hello dev, right? And then right now it's saying Tomcat is running on port 8080. And if you look at the profile, it's speaking the dev profile, which is good. So if you go back to the QA, right, you're seeing that we're running on port 8081, and then our response should be hello dev, right? If we do that, we have to change our port to 8081, and then we try it again, and then now we get hello dev, right? Same way we can switch it to QA and make sure that we're getting our response for QA, and then we run it. And then we see it started the QA, saying the profile it's speaking is QA, which is good, and it's running on 8082, which is correct. Awesome. And then when we change the port and we change it to 8082, we should get our response, which is awesome. Now, another way we can do this is using configuration, specifically using the add profile, for example, right? So let's try that. So here we can just create another package and let's call it config, okay, which is fine. And we just want to create a class. Now here we can just say we want to create a dev config, which is good. And then we want to also create a QA config. Let's just say QA config, which is good. Now we can also create a local config if we want. Which is good. All right, so to make this work, there are certain annotations we need here, right? The first thing is we need the @configuration annotation. Now, again, for those of us that don't understand these annotations, you could always go back to my previous video and you would understand what these annotations are. All right, so this is the local environment, right? Another annotation we need is the @profile. Okay, let's take @profile. And what profile do we want this to run on? And we want to say local, right? Let's just create a bean. All right, let's create a bean that actually does something, right? And returns something. So for example, I want to create a bean here, and then I want to use the @qualifier to specify the name of that particular bean. So I want to use that qualifier, okay? And then I just want to call this local profile, for example. All right, let's just name it local profile. All right, and then we want to create the bean to be public bean. No, so here Yeah, public. Let's make a string, local profile, and then just return local. That works. That's fine. All right, to test this, let's go back to our controller. All right, let's just let's comment out this. Let's just use the same name. And what name did we give our bean earlier? So we gave it local profile. Let's just copy this and then come back here and just name this local profile, and then we want to just return local profile. All right, again, we're assuming that this is the local profile, right? So let's stop this and go back to our configuration, and then we want to run this on our local environment profile, right? So we do that and then we run it. Good. It started and it says the active profile is local and it's running on 8080. Now let's test this. We can always test this with the 8080. Okay, and then if everything looks good, it should be returning the local, but it's not. And we want to see why it's not returning the local. Yeah, that's because we need a constructor. Okay, so let's just create a constructor here. I'll make it public profile test, which is good. All right, and then here we need local profile. Let's make a string local profile. This looks good, and then we want to do this plus local profile equals this. That's good. So it should pick the bean now. Now let's just restart this and try again. Okay, so it started again on port 8080 and on local profile. All right, so let's do this again, and now we're seeing our local, right? We're able to use this local profile, right? You can always change it to whatever you want. Again, it depends on your logic on whatever you're trying to do. So for example, if you want to use databases, right, you could configure your databases here and do whatever you want to do. And again, we can always replicate this. Let's just replicate this for the dev, since we have the local running. And then of course this would be dev profile, and then we just want to return maybe hello dev. That works. And then we want to do the same thing for the QA, and then we want to say QA profile, right? And then we want to say hello QA, but do not forget all our annotations, right? Configuration and the profile. Go back there, paste this. So this is the dev, so we say dev, and same thing for the QA. This is the QA, and we say QA. Okay, so if we run this, right, we're still running this on local. Now assume that I want to use either the QA or the dev configuration of the profile. What do I need to do? See, in the controller we're already saying that we want the local profile, which simply means that we can always call any of these configurations. So for example, if I still run this on 8080, it should not pick any of this bean, because the qualifier is either local profile, or you have the dev profile, or you have the QA profile. So what you should do is call the qualifier. In this case, you have the dev profile, right? So let's switch that. Let's switch that and just switch it around. Okay, and then run this again. And then if we run this again and test this, on what port are we running? Oh, we're still on local. We haven't switched. So let's just switch to dev. Okay, and then we're on this. Okay, so now we're running on dev profile on 8081, and then when we switch this, hello dev. Same thing goes for the QA. We can also test the QA just like that, right? So for some of us that do not have the luxury of using IntelliJ to make it as easy as just going in there and just typing the profile you want. Say for example, you're using a command prompt, right? Or you're using Git Bash, for example. You could also change your profile, right? By using the command prompt, right? All you need to do is just first of all look for the path. In my case, the path is here. I'm looking for the absolute path, and then let's just use CMD for example, like the command prompt. I'm on Windows command prompt, and then what you want to do is you want to cd into that path, okay? And then the first thing you want to do is you want to do maven clean install, okay? We do not want to run the test, so let's just skip the test. Now, if everything looks good, you should see a build success, and then the target file or folder should be generated where you will see the name of your jar, okay? So now the jar is what we need to use in running our application. So for example, you want to run your application, you want to do a Java and then -jar, and then since the jar you want to run is in the target folder, you just do a target, okay, /profile, and then you want to specify what environment or what profile you want to run. So in this case, you want to do a Spring, the profiles, the active, and then you want to say equal to, say, local, for example, right? Awesome. So if you look at this, it's running on port 8080, and then the active profile is your local profile, okay, which looks good, okay? So we can, again, using Ctrl+C, you can stop this, okay, and then you can run the dev if you want, and again it's changing the port. See, you have port 8081 and it's running on dev profile, okay? There's another way you can actually do this, okay? You could use your environment variable. So there are ways you could actually see, you have the environment variables. You can set your environment variable here, and here you could just create a new environment variable and just use that, right? So for example, you could just create a new one here and you just name it Spring underscore profiles, so active, and then you want to make it dev, okay? You want to make it dev, small letter. All right, so here you want to press OK, and then let's stop this and do not include the environment you want to run on, and let's try to run this and see if it's going to pick it. Well, it might not pick it at first. See, it's saying the profile is required, okay? We can close this, we can close the command prompt and then reopen it again, and then again go to that path. Let's look for the path. You can see it into target, and then want to run the java-jar and then a file, and if you see this, it is already picking the profile as dev. I hope I was able to explain how to use different profiles for your application purpose. All right, for those of us that have comments or you have questions that you want to ask, you could leave a comment or your questions in the comment section, or if you have anything you need me to just walk through or explain over the course of this video, please do not hesitate to drop your comment in the comment section. Or maybe you just have something you want to learn and you think I could be of help to you. Again, just drop the comment in the comment section and I will attend to them accordingly. Once again, I'm super thrilled to be your instructor on this journey towards building excellence. Please subscribe, leave your comment, click the notification button to stay updated with our new videos, and most importantly, share with your friends. And I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.